Welcome, everyone, to Beyond Horizons. I have a very special guest here today, Mr. Logan Hart, and he is a truth seeker. He is an entrepreneur. He is a teacher of universal law, and I'm very excited to have this chat today and cover the topics of how we are mind controlled by the system and how we can break away from this by actually adhering to universal law. So, thanks for joining me today, Logan.
Hi, Sian. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Yes, I'm pretty excited to delve into all of this. But first of all, I like to ask people, just for a little bit of background. Some podcasts ask about how, you grew up and your story, but I don't ask that. I ask about people's spiritual awakenings. So I wanted to ask, did you have a spiritual awakening? When did this happen? What sort of drew you into looking above the system and seeing everything for what it is?
Oh yeah. I view awakening as an ongoing process. You know, it's always happening, and it should be something that we're seeking as well. Stagnation is not natural. It's not healthy or sustainable to life. So yeah, I was raised in Texas as a conservative Christian.
Wow.
So I've come a long way from there, let's say.
Yeah.
I've gone through all of the layers of that process from, coming out of religious programming first into like full-blown atheism, which is its own sort of you know, trap, I guess you could say, psychological trap. Um, it's just the other side of the pendulum, right? So kind of shedding everything and almost like starting from a clean slate, right? If you just say there's no God, there's no anything, you just kind
Mm.
of erase it all and then you start rebuilding beliefs from ground zero. And so I went through what I would call like a new age phase and my conspiracy phase, and I carry little pieces of those with me, the parts that still serve and resonate, and leave the rest behind because I think there are a lot of trappings in each of those layers, and they're not somewhere to stay stuck or thinking that you found the ultimate truth. You got to keep going. But my journey really, I feel like all has kind of led me towards the occult and what we're going to talk about today, which is the understanding of natural law, cosmic law, whatever you like to call that. And then, of course, living your life in alignment with those principles.
Mm.
So that's where I see peak spirituality as, understanding the ultimate truths of, not my truth or your truth, but the truth, universal truth that applies to every person equally. And how we express within that space is to the individual, and that's part of the beauty of each of our own unique experiences and talents and personalities and all of those things. But there are certain things that apply to all of us, and those are the most important for all of us to come to understand. And for me, the deeper I go into that, the more it's kind of just taking me more into the esoteric sciences, the occult, ancient history, all these things that are not taught readily or even easily found without some seeking, right? Some truth seeking. So I think that's a good sort of opening, like setting the stage.
Yeah, amazing. I completely agree. And it's a very similar path for me as well. I'm always taken back to the occult and to the natural law. And I think that's why the world is so unbalanced and society is so unbalanced because we're not following universal law. And that is the true wisdom, like how the universe works. How does the world work? How is everything created? There's a balance in that. There's a polarity in all of that. There's a universal laws to all of that. And our society is most certainly not working within those parameters that I
Mm.
can see. Um, and another thing I wanted to touch on was the stages of awakening. So, um, I find that quite fascinating because I do find that some people get stuck in these different stages of awakening. And one of those that I see a lot of people fall into the rabbit hole and never get out of sometimes is the conspiracy stage. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that, on the conspiracy stage of awakening?
Yeah, it's a very, very important part of the journey. It is part of growing up, right? When you're a kid, you're told don't talk to strangers and don't just eat candy from somebody you don't know and things like that. Well, why is that? Because there's evil in the world. And it's just a basic part of kind of growing up is understanding, yes, there is evil in the world. You can't project your own goodness onto other people and expect that everyone is the way you are, or because you wouldn't do something, that someone else wouldn't do that, especially when a lot of these so-called elites are literally bred into this mindset from birth. I mean, it gets very dark, and we're probably going to go some of those places here, but this is the idea is it's important to look in these things without getting stuck in that paradigm yourself and being too much of like a victim of it all. But yeah, I mean, these people are nothing like you and I, who have at least a basic moral framework. They are taught to see humanity at large as vermin, as pests, and to be exterminated. And that is what their whole goal is. And they are united on a global level to do exactly that. And and to control and basically crush and subjugate the human spirit and to co-opt and usurp creativity or magic. That's what that is in its essence. So just that little concept there really encapsulates everything we're going to get into with the mind control and the of course natural law being the north star is what I like to kind of call it, because it's the guiding light that keeps us aligned and no it keeps us oriented towards truth, towards right livelihood and right living and action. And that's what our action is, what's giving us the experience that we're having. So when the world keeps getting worse and worse and worse, who else is there to look to but us who are creating the world is as responsible for what we are creating and why. So it's one thing to say you want, say, freedom, for example, but then you have to ask yourself, well, what are the conditions for freedom? And am I individually and are we collectively meeting those requirements? This
Mm,
is the natural law aspect. The it's the top layer. It's the pinnacle of natural law is the conditions of freedom, and it's direct correlation with morality.
mm,
So as as a society or a collective becomes less moral, then we become less free. And as we become more moral, more freedom is created. So
mm,
it's simple cause and effect. That's what natural law, it's karmic law, consequential law. There's many names for it, but it doesn't care what we call it. It just is. And it's our job as conscious, intelligent beings to recognize it's there and that it has supremacy over everything we do, and to see that as a wonderful thing. It's not oppressive because it's there to create the condition or the ability to create freedom, but still respecting our free will because it's all about what we are choosing.
mm.
That's the most empowering thing there is. So it's beautiful, it's empowering, and we need to lean into that. And like I said, not only acknowledge it's there, but understand that it can be worked to our advantage. It's not for or against you. It's like a mirror. It's just going to show you, hey, this is what you're putting out there, and you're going to get it right back.
So yeah, definitely every action has a reaction, cause and effect. These are the universal laws. And I really encourage people to go and have a look at what they actually are, like look them up. And then just start seeing, how are you applying that in your life? And have you even been applying that in your life? And just absorbing those laws gives you freedom in itself. Definitely that you have a choice.
Hmm.
I think that's why they call it the awakening or the great awakening, because you finally wake up and realize, hang on a minute, I do have a choice. I do, I can be
It's true.
sovereign. Yeah. Yeah. I don't have to live this way. And what actions am I actually taking towards this? It's literally like
Hmm.
you wake up out of a dream of this whole mind control. And um, yeah, the more that I delve into those ancient teachings, the more I understand how much balance and harmony and wisdom is within it, where the system that we've got at the moment, like you're saying, is controlling and subduing and taking away people's power. And they create the system where you're idolizing other people. So, like Beyonce, Jay-Z, people like this, like how the whole structure has worked, all of that energy being idolized towards one person and not to self. And you're giving your power away all the time. I feel like this is one of the biggest problems is that we're giving our power away. What are your thoughts?
Exactly right. You nailed it. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say is they have refined and advanced their mind control system and techniques so perfectly to the point that they don't need to use overt slavery and domination anymore because it's much better to convince people to give their power away freely because free will is a universal principle. They understand this very well.
Yeah.
And so it's all about the game of manufacturing consent. They're manipulating people's perceptions, and that is leading them to make decisions that they want them to make that are not in their own best interest, but in the interest of those who are planting those ideas and manipulating the perception on the world stage. So there's many layers to it. There's, obviously the media control is a big part of it, manipulating what information people have and how they perceive what's going on in the world. You know, law is another big one, form of mind control that is backed by coercion and violence, which is always immoral unless used in self-defense, which is not what the government does. I mean, it's how they say it started with the whole Constitution and the Bill of Rights. It's there to protect your rights, so it's only going to use force to defend your rights. But but first of all, you have to ask yourself, how free are you if you have to depend on something outside of yourself to give you freedom?
That's such a
Freedom is intrinsic. And as soon as you're giving that power away to something else to, oh, keep me free and protect my freedoms, you're not free anymore. You're now codependent on a narcissistic external being. It's like asking a wolf to guard the hen house. You know what I mean?
yeah, it's the
So
nature of the beast, isn't it? It is a
it
parasitic,
really is.
narcissistic entity, the way that it's built. So yeah, for us to be able to take our power back, it's a conscious choice. And we do have that choice. That's the thing.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah,
Awareness is the key. You have to become
awareness.
aware of it first. And then when you know, now you don't have an excuse anymore because you can't say, oh, I didn't know. I was ignorant to it. When you know, now you have a responsibility and it's like, what are you going to do about it now? And so that is the whole message of everything the whole time. It's always been you and me as the individuals. We have the power. We are sovereign divine beings. No one has external authority over us, even if some other people get together and vote and do some magic rituals and write scribbles on pieces of paper called laws and say, well, we did some super official serious stuff and we all decided we have the right to rule you and, you know, throw you in a cage if you don't comply to our arbitrary dictates and things like that. It's all mind control. It's made
It's
up.
all spells.
Government literally means
Yeah.
mind control. Gubernare, or to govern. If I say if I govern you, that doesn't feel good, right? It's like saying I have authority. I'm going to tell you what to do. And mint literally comes from mentis, which is Latin for mind. So it's to govern the mind, government.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, it's definitely spell work. And the interesting thing is that there's always a loophole around it because the universal law is above this systematic law. And there's always a way out of whatever spell that they've been creating, whatever rules or laws or whatever's been put there. There's always a
Hmm.
loophole around it when you rise above it. I've noticed that. But another thing I wanted to get into more is like the techniques of how they mind control us. And I feel one of the biggest things and how they enter us and how they can manipulate us is through fear.
Hmm.
So do you feel like
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest things they feed off of?
Well, they certainly feed on fear. It's like a fuel source. It's like they're you have to think of them as magicians because that's what they are, but they're sorcerers. So it's a true magician draws power from within, right? And we are all as divine beings, you and I, we're divine beings, we're creators. So we have that connection to source. That's where our true magic comes from. But these people, they're soulless, they're cut off from their power. So the only power that they have to take from other people or get them to give it to them. And fear is one of the best ways that they can harvest that energy that they channel into their affairs, their global orchestrations and things like that. But fear is more of a byproduct to me. What is the deep root cause is trauma. So anyone who wants to dive deep into this, so I created a 4 hour presentation called Trivium Hacking that is like the master blueprint to mind control. So if you really want to understand it from top to bottom, I recommend checking that out because it is extremely important. It's what I consider my most important uh, piece that I've ever done. And so in that I talk about what is trauma based mind control. So the whole name of the game is they have to wear you down and demoralize you so that your sovereignty is eroded to the point that your boundaries are weak and your mindset is weak and you're like it's like tilling the soil. It makes it fertile to take in their mind control programs to get them to take and stick and flourish inside the mind. So they have to traumatize us first because a healthy whole person is pretty much immune to mind control. To heal is a Germanic word for whole. It's the same word in Germanic language. Heil and heal is to be whole, to be complete. So trauma fractures the psyche. It breaks us up into these little pieces. And then there's internal discord because you're not one whole complete being. You've got all this chaos inside between your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. And you're susceptible to trauma bonding to different things because you don't feel complete and whole on the inside. You seek externally to find things that make you feel complete. And some people turn to addictions like drugs or sex or alcohol or gambling or things like this. But there are many, many forms of addictions or what I call these trauma bonds. See, trauma bonding is not just two people like trauma bonding together. To me, it can encompass anything where a person is seeking something externally to get that feeling of wholeness. So it can be a behavior, it can be a person, it can be a sense of identity. You know, uh, Ford sucks, Chevy's better. All these little games that the ego plays, the wounded ego, I should say, because I don't demonize the ego. The ego is literally just your sense of self. There's a healthy version and there's a damaged version. And because mind control is so rampant, we're all to some degree broken down. And we have these little cracks. And that's where the mind control slips in because then we can latch on to things like a politician or a religion or flat earth or whatever conspiracy like you were mentioning earlier. To me, that's why people get stuck in that, is like they're latching on to something because it gives them like this chemical high in the brain that they can't get from their own sense of wholeness or being connected to their purpose because they don't have that. That's what we're supposed to be doing, is connecting to ourselves through love and bringing our gifts and our creativity out and sharing that with others. And so there's just this whole living ecosystem of abundance and creativity and mutual service and all of these things, but we're disconnected from that. So people seek other ways to get this like mental high that we're supposed to be getting from living our dharma, our orlog, right? Okay. So I know I'm saying a lot. Um, if you
Yeah,
want to comment
very,
on that before I
very
continue.
important points. That's exactly right. When you don't have a purpose, you're a leaf in the wind. You're disconnected. You don't know why you're here, and you feel
Mm,
lost. You feel disempowered. And this is where I feel someone asked me the other day, it was an interesting question. They said, "Why are all these spiritual people suddenly turning Christian and going into religion?" And I pondered with that for a while, and I thought, I think I know the answer to that. And it's like they get to a certain level of doing the mirror work, the shadow work, the childhood wounding, and it just gets all too much because it can be, it's a journey of bravery, really going in and doing that work to face that wounding and to face those shadows and that trauma. And I feel like people just find it all too much sometimes, and they need that safety of just finding a trauma bond, something that's going to take away the responsibility of having to do that themselves, giving their power away again. And it's like they almost get there, but then they opt for the easy way out. So that's what I'm finding. Yeah.
yeah, you nailed it. Absolutely. And religion is a big one because that's really what it's designed to do is to get you to give your power away, give it up, let God take Jesus, take the wheel and all this kind of thing. And like you said, you're giving your responsibility, your autonomy and sovereignty away and just be like, "Oh, well, you know, Jesus is going to take care of me. He's going to do all the work for me and save my soul." Instead of you earning your own like spiritual evolution. Personally, I would find that very insulting if someone said, "Oh, I'll do all the work for you," and what I call spiritual welfare. It's just like giving away. It doesn't mean anything if you didn't earn it. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
And that goes back to the universal
So,
law again as well, that, if we're not
mhm,
doing any actions, we're not going to get any reward. If we're giving all the power away, then the karma
yes,
reaction to that universal law, you're not going to be granted with anything. So you have to do the work.
that's exactly it because religion flat out will say it's not about your works, it's not about your action, it's just about your belief. That is just cult mentality 101. And you know these these type of belief systems are very predatory towards wounded and damaged people. That's why you see these billboards as you're driving down the road, and it's literally somebody like this, and it's like, "Are you hurting? Do you feel lost? Jesus has all the answers." It's like they're just preying on people that are lost and wounded. And yeah, I mean, some people try to argue, well, it gives people a sense of purpose. Well, kind of. Actually, I say it's bypassing them actually connecting with their purpose and making them feel like their religion and worshiping some deity is their purpose, when that's literally the thing that they're they're giving up that. They're disconnecting from their purpose and going in a different direction, which is, I mean, as a whole, there's a lot of philosophical aspects to the Christian belief system in particular, and others too. But I always go for that one more so just because I was raised that way, so I understand it very well. I was that way for the first 20 years of my life. I know what I believed. I know what I heard every day in church, what I heard my family say. So, I'm very specific on why. It's not that I'm a hater, and I see that there are certain good aspects about religion, and it doesn't mean I hate Christians. Most of my family are still Christians, but I have very specific and well-reasoned points of contention with the ideology of religion, including Christianity and others. And I'm always happy to say why I have these issues. It's not just about, oh, it's stupid or it was forced on me, so I'm just rebelling. It's, it's from a very well thought out, where well reasoned place that I'm coming from.
And probably personal experience as well, I guess, when you started turning towards yourself and you get confirmation when you start taking empowered actions for yourself, you get confirmation and um, courage and you start believing in yourself and your abilities. There's confirmation each time you make a positive step forwards and put that power back into yourself. So I'm guessing that's from personal experience as well when you started doing that. Um,
Of course,
hmm.
because at a certain age, around 19, 20 years old, I started questioning, I was very like all about my religion up until that point. And right around there, I started getting just kind of, I don't know, just not as fired up. And I don't know, it's just not really moving me spiritually. It's not nourishing me spiritually anymore. So I started asking my questions, and that took me on my whole journey. And I've been questioning things ever since. And lo and behold, I haven't come full circle to Christianity. There's a reason for that. I'm always coming back to those ideas and thinking them through with the current level of understanding that I have now. And I'm more certain than ever that it's not spiritually aligned. I I want to be clear on that. It's like, yes, everyone has their choice. If someone wants to be Christian, they have that right. But as we talked about in the beginning, there are certain universal principles that apply to everyone objectively. It's not about what you do or don't want to be true, what you resonate with. It just is, right? Like, for example, if a family member dies, it's going to feel really bad and you probably don't resonate with it, but it's just true. It happened. It sucks. And we have to just accept truth for what it is, right? And so, especially a lot of times when we're raised with such heavy indoctrination and programming, it might not feel good to hear truth at first because truth can be very destructive to our false beliefs and it doesn't feel good. So that's very important on its own when it comes to emotional mind control is you can't always just know truth by whether it feels good or not. You got to be willing to be uncomfortable and really think things through. Let your emotions settle down. You may be listening to this episode right now and getting super triggered. That's good. It's okay. You're totally fine. It's just words. Really think about what we're saying and give it time, right? Think it through logically, rationally.
Mm.
So anyway, I kind of went on a side tangent there, but I was just saying that spirituality has a very real structure to it. There are many, many ways to be spiritual, but there are certainly things that are not on the spiritual path, or they are outright antithetical to what actual spirituality is. And that's what I'm really getting at. Is there are fundamental reasons why these religions, and I think the biggest ones are statism, the belief in government as a legitimate thing that has the authority and the right to force people to it's literal slavery because if it can tell you like what you can and can't do and it can take literal fruits of your labor. How
Mm.
is that not the exact definition of slavery? It's saying you don't own yourself, we own you. Therefore, like if you're our property, that's what property means, right? If I own a car, I have the say of what does and doesn't happen with that property. Well, that's what the government is doing to you. It's saying we own you, and this is what you can and can't do. And if you break the law, you're basically going against what we say, and we have the right because a bunch of people agreed that we have the right to do nasty things and do violence to you. That's just not correct. It's immoral. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter how you try to justify it. You can't turn violence into a good thing unless it's in self-defense. Period. That's some of that natural law that we're talking about. But in addition to that, back to the spiritual side because it's like government is kind of the claim on your body more than anything, and then the religion is like false spirituality. It's masquerading as spirituality, but actually it's spiritual slavery. it's claiming on your soul. So
Wow.
you're in total lockdown
You are.
when you've got all these programs running, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I never thought of it as the government was like a religion in itself, but it is. Almost. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like where, oh gosh, that movie, The Matrix, always bring that up. But it's like you're given a number. It's like you're a cattle in the herd and you're just, yeah, labeled with your social security number or whatever it is, taxed and controlled.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's you might have to edit that out. Can you hear that rain?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you can hear
Yeah,
rain?
you no,
Oh,
I don't
okay.
hear
It's
anything.
raining really heavily here. Okay, I can edit that.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, what was I going to say? Um, yeah, so it's like we're on total lockdown, isn't it? And all the power is taken away from us. And this is where I go back to ancient teachings, and this is where Christianity came in and wiped out a lot of culture and a lot of these practices that were connecting people to the divine, to themselves, to the earth, to everything around them. And when I'm seeing these more recent spiritualities, Christianity, Catholicism, even Satanism, all the energy is going in that one direction, like I was saying before, outside of self. And when you look into these ancient teachings and more that are more connected to universal law, we see many different directions. So I think we were
Mm.
speaking about this previously. We've got
Mm-hmm.
direction to Father Sky, Mother Earth, Northeast, Southwest, and then to the center of self. And that's the seven directions. Where in spirituality and Christianity or in Satanism, it's just the one direction. So,
Mm. Yeah.
yeah, I feel like when we start unhooking from that and turning back to nature and connecting to everything, that's when we, by mathematics, by sacred geometry, by all of those things, we start bringing all that energy back into self and become sovereign again.
Yes. Yes. You said nature, and that's exactly that is the key. That is the to just simply be connected to nature and aligned with her is the essence of the spiritual path. That's why, in my view, all mind control, if you boil it down, is there to disconnect you from nature, whether that's from yourself internally or the external, the natural world. And when I say nature, I don't just mean trees and birds and rainbows and nice, pretty things you see when you go out on a hike, right? I mean reality, right? Chemical reactions in your body. That's nature, right? It's physics and metaphysics. It's all of that. It's the way things work in their essence through creation, like in creation, I should say. Um, Not man-made. That's what that word really means. And so, getting aligned to nature is simply just being directly interfaced and not only observing, but interacting and in a feedback loop, a creative feedback loop with reality itself. So all these programs are trying to say, well, you don't need to, experience that or see that. You just need to believe what this book says or what this law says or whatever, because that's just how it is. Smarter men and whatever have come before you, and they've already got all the answers. So all you need to do is trust, and it's all just taken care of. It's so easy. It's just like a nice bedtime story. Go back to sleep, little child. Don't need to worry yourself with the ways of the world. Just trust and you're taken care of, and your soul will be saved. It's all just so easy and nice, right? But again, a big part of spirituality is being a spiritual adult, growing up. And what is growing up all about? Becoming responsible for yourself, not being afraid of everything. And a lot of that happens when you actually go out in the world and you have experiences and you understand how things actually operate, that not everything is satanic or some kind of dark spell or something. Like, yes, that stuff is real, but the natural world is beautiful and mystical and sometimes dangerous, but you know, that's again part of being an adult. It's like you understand there's dangers in the world, but you can handle that. And you need to be well equipped for that. That's why I talk about being a spiritual warrior as well. That means having a strong mindset, really strong, internal boundaries and sovereignty, because you're not going to accept and tolerate that kind of abuse and things like that. And yeah, you want to understand the way the spiritual world works before going too off on your own, of course. Like I said, you do have to be smart and be wise about things, but just not being afraid of your own shadow.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's
a big one.
that's a problem with a lot of the conspiracy types who also just so happen to be very often Christians as well. So a Christian truther is a very common archetype. And these people are so just afraid of everything, everything's satanic and this and that. And it's like, well, again, there is an element of truth to that, but they become so obsessed with it. It's just all they can see, and everything's dark and negative, and I can't even watch TV because it's all just trying to program me. And and you can't, they just like, they seem miserable. They can't even enjoy anything because everything's so evil and just out to get you. It's really unhealthy. And you have to come back to a place of balance, of understanding like evil exists in the world, but everything is balance in the world. And there's so much good and there's so much beauty to being a human being and
Mm.
living your life and all the beautiful stages of being young and then growing older and having more experience and then becoming an old person with lots of wisdom and everything in between. We need to embrace that and see it for the beauty that it is and not be stuck in that paradigm of like, we're all just slaves and we're stuck in these 3D bodies and they're just gross and fleshy and everything is, satanic. I don't know. It's just extremely unhealthy.
Yeah, there's definitely stages, isn't there? Definitely stages. And they're important and they're all beautiful in their own stage, but there are so many wounded people that are stuck in fear. And you're right, that's when you just start seeing darkness and everything's against you and you're in fear. And I feel like the shadow work is one of the most important things that everyone should do. And I go
Mm,
into that the grail journey and the hero's journey. I always speak about this, that that's the journey of the soul. It's taking that leap off the cliff. It's going on that
mm,
adventure with yourself. It's facing the demons or the shadows that you have to slay, or and then coming out the other side of that. And then when you've gone through that healing, that's when all the beauty comes in. That's when you start seeing everything with like 12 more dimensions and understanding everything on such a deeper level. And yeah, the beauty just starts flowing then. But I feel like people do shy away from the shadow work, and that's sort of the key.
mm. Yeah, yeah, because that those wounds are the entry points that these mind control programs can slip in there. So that's where somebody that seems super aware and you'd think you'd never expect it from them, and then all of a sudden it's like a flip triggers in their mind, and they like hardcore Christian or they go flat earther or something, and it's just like so bizarre to see. It's like, whoa, where did that come from? It's because there was these holes in their sense of self, and then something slipped in there and then they just triggered them out.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of people, really paying lip service to shadow work, but they're not actually doing it.
Mm.
And so, I mean, that's important too, is like you can talk about it all day, but it's not doing you any good. What real shadow work is, first of all, radical self-reflection and self-responsibility, like owning your shit, even if it's horrific and terrifying, because even if you're like you think you're a monster or you're no good or whatever, these beliefs that come about from this wounded psyche, you can accept that that is true in the moment, but also that you can be whoever you want. If you're a POS right now because you've done this and this, or you feel like you're failing or whatever, that may actually be true, but you can change it right now by changing your actions and changing your mindset. So it's nothing is set in stone, right? We are extremely malleable beings. Our consciousness is very malleable. So the first stage is simply just seeing things as they are, and most importantly, yourself. Stop lying to yourself. Be honest, even if it's brutal
Yeah.
and painful, and you feel like you're literally dying. You really will potentially feel like you're literally dying. But that is your negative, like your false self and your illusions dying, not the real you. And the result will be the real you beginning to shine through that. And so looking at yourself that way and then looking at the world that way and the things that you hold to be truth and being willing to let it all go because there's always room for growth and you can't get too calcified in what you think is truth because that's the spiritual the like we said in the beginning the awakening process is ongoing. It's
Yeah.
a never-ending process of building structures and then just taking a sledgehammer and just obliterating them because they're not serving you anymore. And then you build it all over again, better and more beautiful and more elaborate. And then you destroy that one and make an even better one.
The cycle of
It's
death and rebirth, everything's a cycle, isn't it? And I see it in a spiral. So
mhm.
we're going through the spiral, and each time we'll come back around to a bit more of a shadow, and then we'll build again, and we'll come through that, and then we'll come up the spiral again, and there may be another bit there. And so we're constantly
Yep.
visiting that, aren't we? And going through that. But I love that radical self-acceptance, because when we radically see everything for what it is,
The
accept,
positive and the negative.
yeah, that is strength in that. That's when we can really, yeah, start building that spiritual strength. Like, okay, I accept
Exactly.
those shadows. I accept that light. I can see everything for what it is. Now, what am I
Mhm.
going to do about it? If we're bypassing, we're never going to actually do anything about it.
Right. The
Hmm.
only thing, this is my own idea, but or at least, I haven't read this anywhere, but the only thing people fear more than being powerless is their power, like actually being powerful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have to look at both sides of that.
That is such a huge one. I'm actually doing an immersion on this at the moment. It's like find your own power. People are shit scared of their own power because
Hmm.
we've been indoctrinated for so long and all through our family,
And
like,
demoralized. That's
demoralized.
what I'm talking about. It's like
Yeah.
everything about what we're taught is all telling you without telling you you're worthless, you're powerless, right? Okay, like so from the Christian perspective again, you're a sinner. You can't do anything without God. You're just helpless. All anything good that you could ever do is only through God, right? But you get credit for all the sin, right? You're the sinner, but if you do anything good, well, that wasn't you. That was God working through you. How
Yeah.
messed up is that? And
So
then the government's doing the same thing. It's just gaslighting you on top of gaslighting. Well, people can't be free because people are evil, you know? And it's like, well, what's the government made of? People, right? So if people can't be trusted with freedom, how the hell are they going to be trusted with executive power of the government? How does that make any sense?
mm,
So just every layer of how the world is structured is non-verbally, subconsciously teaching you you're powerless, you're evil, and you need something out here that is going to make like keep you in line and give you your power, all of these things.
yeah.
That's the demoralization process.
And then when you actually wake up out of that and you think, gosh, I can actually create my own reality, that can be so scary. That's so
Hmm.
foreign. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
I can
Freedom
actually,
freedom is scary.
yeah, yeah. So um I find that a
It's
lot.
like yeah, it's like when a prisoner gets out of prison when he's been in for 50 years. And oftentimes they want to go back in because they're just like, I don't even know how to be free. I don't know what to do with myself. That's the actual literal same condition that people are in when they think about freedom, what
Wow.
real freedom would be like. It's absolutely terrifying to them. They would much rather people be in power, tell them what to do, all of those things. So that's a big problem. That's an example of how
Yep.
It's not just the government is doing this to us. We're asking for it. The majority of people still go out there and vote for which master they would like. You know, they're still condoning that system.
Mm,
So it's when until we first realize that we never didn't have the power, you can't you can't give that power away because you always have your free will. You see, this idea of the consent of the governed, it doesn't exist. You cannot consent to be governed because to be governed means to override your free will. It's like saying you consent to like the R word. I don't want to get a video flagged or something like that, but it's by definition you cannot do that.
mm,
You know what I mean? So we have to just recognize that we are the only ones responsible for our freedom, for our well-being and our to be able to thrive, through just what I see the free markets as the biggest part of that is just and not just monetary, not just the exchange of money. It's a useful system. I'm not anti-money, actually. A lot of truthers are.
mm,
Money's just a tool. However, what what is the real value is service and content and that's the real economy because that's the thing that has the value. The money is just a medium of exchange for these real commodities of what I said before, simply human creativity,
mm,
knowledge, skills, services, and products.
mm-hmm.
That's what really makes the world go round because we all have our unique gifts.
That's it. That's the thing. And once we do that healing and we tap into those unique gifts, when we start connecting back into all the directions and meditating and finding out who we are on a soul level, like those gifts naturally start channeling through. We start creating things that will naturally help humanity. They're designed that way to help humanity. When they're in that beautiful form that they're in. So yeah, and I love that you were saying before, we're so malleable. We are. We are so we're amazing beings, what we can actually do and how quickly we can adjust and evolve and even skip into different timelines through our thoughts and our energies and our visions once we break free of that. Um, but yeah, it's just taking that leap off the cliff. It's taking that
Mm-hmm.
scary leap, and just but keep going, keep taking those actions forward, keep going, and not giving
Mm.
up. It is easier. And I go back to the Matrix movie again, where I think one of them decided, didn't they, that they just wanted to go back into the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
They
The
loved it there.
cipher.
It was safer. Yeah, yeah. Wasn't as
Yep.
hard.
Yep.
So,
He's the archetype that represents the mindset of most people. He got to taste the real world and freedom, and he said, "Nope, I'm good. Plug me back in. Just make me someone, famous like an actor. And I don't want, I don't want to know that this steak isn't real. I just want to taste it and think it tastes good. It's just that's materialism is what that's getting at of just the slave of the senses, that sort of thing. It's
mm,
yeah, very profound movie. I love that. But yeah, it's really just it begins with choice. That's what that whole movie is about, right? It comes back to choice. Red pill or blue pill. What are you going to do? Are you the one you've been waiting for? The
yeah.
one, right? The Neo.
Mm.
Neo means new, by the way, but it also is an anagram for one.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Incredible. Yeah. And so why would people want to choose sovereignty though? Like why? When it's easier to be in the matrix.
but it's not though.
Mm.
That's the trick. That's the trick. You think it's easier, but your soul is screaming inside. You cannot run from yourself. You can try for a while, but the more you stuff it down, the more miserable you become. Why do you think, you know, pharmaceuticals and mind, like antidepressants is off the charts and suicide rates are just climbing and climbing and climbing.
Mm.
It's not easier to be a slave. It's not easier to give away your power and your sovereignty, it's it's hell on earth.
Mm.
And the only answer is acknowledging the truth. And the sooner you face it, the better the sooner you can start getting that process underway. I think that's what scares people a lot too, is simply, well, where do I even start? It doesn't matter. You just start. The
Just
first
take,
step is always the hardest. And then
mm.
every step after that is easier and easier and easier. It's like going to the gym. That first gym session sucks. And you're so sore. You're sore for like a week and you're like, oh, this is terrible. But then, 4 weeks later, you're on a more consistent schedule and you may even start to like it. Wow, what a concept, you know?
I
And,
love
and this is really how it works. And you're
the
just gonna
spiritual muscle.
you you start feeling yourself again. Like, just
Mm.
imagine what that would be like. And like falling in love with yourself, discovering who you really are, getting in touch with that and finding out, wow, I'm pretty awesome. And I never even knew that I had this interest or this talent. And that makes you feel more alive and fulfilled than you've ever felt in your whole life. Yeah, it's not easier to be a slave. That's one of the greatest lies ever sold by the slave masters, the ones playing the trick on everyone.
Yeah, and you're so right. It is like the soul screaming inside. They're all screaming for help. You can see it in the mental illnesses and the violence and the domestic violence even is someone that's
Mhm.
not connected to their purpose. Because when you're connected to your purpose, you have a sense of um belonging, you have a sense of you just feel secure, you feel free, you feel like your emotions are balanced, you've got all that good energy
Mhm.
coming in. There's nothing like it really. So I feel like a lot of these problems just come from that disconnection.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because
Mhm.
when you're connected to yourself, you're projecting that self-love outwards to others.
Mm.
When people do violence to each other, all they're doing is projecting the hatred that they have for themselves, and they're just channeling that into external action. That's all that is. It's just projection.
Yeah, so many people are frustrated out there because they're disconnected from
Yeah.
purpose. It builds resentment, frustration, lack of belief in self, all of these things. Um, yeah, and then that's projected outwards. Absolutely, you're right.
Yeah. And this is all just natural law. We were talking about how to be healthy. You hear the word healthy all the time, um, but it's almost always talking about, oh, eat this, don't eat that, go to the gym, like be fit, physically healthy, which is very important. I'm a huge fitness nerd and health person. That's all great. But guess what? There's mental and spiritual health as well. And those need just as much attention. And that's what we're talking about, is how to be healthy spiritually and mentally as well.
Mm.
And mind control is like the junk food. You've got to purge that crap out, but then you got to take the good stuff in, right? So positive self-belief about your sovereignty, understanding natural law, absolutely crucial. Um, I believe having an animistic or a pagan mindset is the natural default mindset, the healthy one, to replace these mind viruses, these mind programs with. And that's not, the irony is, that's not me like pushing my religion, like, oh, I'm a pagan, I think you should be a pagan too. It's literally just being in tune with the natural world and living by that.
Mm.
That's the opposite of a religion, because religion is there to disconnect you from the nature of yourself and reality. What I'm promoting is just reconnect with that. And there is no right or wrong way to be a pagan. Like, you can take these traditionalist paths, being a Norse pagan or a druid or whatever, and those things are all fine, but you don't need any of that to be a pagan. All that means is you understand that nature is divine and that you are part of nature. You're not separate from it. So don't even think of it as something that's out there and you're in here. It's all you and you are it. It's all one thing. and then just living accordingly, understanding the cycles of nature and the ecology of energy exchange and transfer, reciprocity,
Mm.
you know, energetic economics. It's just all the same thing. It's just like it's almost like what I don't know. I was thinking of when in the Matrix they're seeing the code and it's all just these like numbers and stuff, but that's the artificial reality. But then when you have your real spiritual eyes, you see everything is just energy. Like you remember when Neo like first steps into his power and the agent's looking at him and he's blinded because he's just pure light and he's just like that's what I'm talking about. Everything is that and you are too. That's
Yes.
paganism. It's
What?
not a religion. It's just an understanding of what reality actually is and
Mm.
then being a part of that. Like that's the beauty of it. Is like we're born into this world and there's all these different senses and experiences and things. That's beautiful. We're meant for that. And religion tells you, you know, oh, those are earthly things, those are secular things or worldly things. That's not for you. You're supposed to live this pious life of just like suppress all your emotions and desires, and it's extremely toxic, you know. I could just go on and on, I know, but you know, yeah, what I'm trying to say is purging the toxic crap and taking in the proper mindsets to live healthy, a healthy life in alignment with the way the world actually works. And
Yeah.
so, you know, a great place to start is check out my channel. I've got hundreds of videos on there, presentations, short stuff, something for everyone. And this is really what I talk about is true spirituality, how to live in alignment with natural law. Morality is one of the most important things as well. And yeah.
Things like respect, morality, reciprocity, all of those things, how the
Mhm.
natural world works. Yeah. So is this on YouTube, your channel?
Yes.
What's
Yes,
it
it's the
called?
Wizard Factory. The Wizard Factory on YouTube. There's my shirt. And yeah, you can find me on Facebook as well and join the free group, the Inner Sanctum. So
Hmm.
if we could just put a link in the show notes here, and it'll just be a link tree that has all my Wizard Factory, so you could follow me on YouTube, you could join the group and all of that good stuff.
Yeah. And one thing I love saying is when you start tapping into the natural world and you start tapping into all this witchy, wizardy, even native ways of being, it's so fun. It's so rewarding. It's so beautiful. There's so much depth to it and connection. And it's just a whole world of discovery, isn't it? That goes on and on and on and on. Um,
Mm.
yeah, which we have been separated from. So I really encourage people to yeah, explore the connection with the natural world in all the different forms that it has. Energy work, divination, yeah, all of those things.
Yep. And then I get into all that. My free initiation package is how you get access to the free group, but it also has a mini course that teaches you some basic magical and breathwork practices, things like that. And I also teach the runes, and I have a rune course as well. So there's the divination aspect. So yeah, something for everyone for sure. Just all the tools. That's what I'm about, giving you the spiritual tools and mindsets to live a more free and empowered life. That's my tagline for the whole platform.
Yes, free and empowered life and a life full of magic. That's what I'm all about. Bring the magic
Hmm.
back and the joy and the sparkles. We don't need to
That's
be
right.
a slave race just in despair and trauma. We can actually find, yeah, the magic again.
You are the magic, right? And you're doing magic every single day. But if it's on an unconscious level, then you're not being intentional with what you're creating. And that's why we're in the situation that we're in, because everyone's magic is being hijacked by this parasitic ruling class and siphoning all of our creative energy to create their prison for us instead of creating the heaven on earth that we could be creating.
Oh, got goosebumps all over. That's it. I mean, we are, and it's so sad, isn't it? Because we are such magical beings, all that beautiful
Hmm.
energy and that creativity and what we can make here. Yes, Zion, heaven on earth.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
It
Well, I think they're
it is
very,
sad. It
mm,
is sad, but we can change it.
we can.
it's
Yeah.
it's never too late, and that's the takeaway. Like I don't want people to get stuck in that, oh, what does it matter, like they're just gonna lock do another lockdown or whatever it is, and we'll just the bankers are gonna take over and put us all in camps or whatever the story is. It's like until that's actually happening, just live your life and be as free as you possibly can and make your very existence an act of rebellion. That's how I like to look at it.
I love that. Make your very existence an act of rebellion. I love that. Yeah.
Yes,
Awesome. Wow. I think we'll finish on that. Thank you so much for joining us. There were some really, really powerful points there. And yeah, everyone just find the magic, live a sovereign life and just keep taking the actions forwards. And that's how we change the world. Definitely.
absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Sian. And yeah, come on down to the Wizard Factory, learn some stuff and connect and, make friends, and it'll be a good time.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Logan. Take
Much
care.
love. Thank you. Bye.